Welcome back.
Hi.
How are you, Carly?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing great.
Good.
I'm doing great. Been busy. Everything going on.
Yep.
How have you been?
I'm good. Just school and church and life and everything continues as normal.
Yeah. And you went out of town this weekend, right?
Yeah, I went
How'd
to. It was good. I went to Dallas. From Thursday to Sunday, I took some of the high school students from my church. They were helping with the conference there in Dallas, and so I just told them that I would take them back
Like a youth
over the summer.
conference? Okay.
Yeah. It was several of the students that are normally a part of our youth camp over the summer, and so it was another church that normally attends the youth camp, and several of the students there and other students at the other churches planned a conference.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so lots of young children.
So you got no rest.
No, not at all. I'm still very tired. But yeah, so I went there and helped out with them and hung out with some friends that I have there too. So it was a good weekend.
Good.
Yeah,
Good.
but I'm always glad to be back.
Yeah.
I'm always
Home's
glad to be
nice.
back. Yes.
Good to go away, but home's good.
Yes.
Good. Well, speaking of home, you said last time that I know you're still transitioning into living back at home, and this is the second semester that you've been home now? Or the third?
Third.
Okay.
Because the first semester I was home, I was at a junior college, and then this is now my second semester at U of H.
Because in the spring was your first semester at U of H, and this is your second one. Okay.
Right.
Okay. Making sure I've got that in my head. So then with that, have you been able to kind of acclimate more? Or I know it's been a week or so since we talked. Well, not just from the school, but then I know last time you mentioned that it was really a struggle sometimes to have been living on your own for 2 years, and then now you're back living with your parents.
Right.
And having to answer to kind of the way, like, their life didn't change. And so you're coming back into the household, and they're thinking, no, we're going to pick up where we left off.
Right.
How is that transitioning?
I think their life may have changed because they weren't used to not having anyone at home. And so then they didn't have to ask the normal questions that they ask whenever I'm home.
Oh, okay.
So then whenever I got back, it was like immediately back to where I was before. So like whenever I came back, they didn't know growth had happened.
Okay.
So it's kind of like
because it
out of sight, out of
you,
mind.
So it's
kind of like you didn't see me grow, so you didn't know that you grew. Like when you see relatives from like a long time ago, and you're like, you're so tall. How old are you? And they're however many years older they were.
You're supposed to be 8 still.
Right. Exactly.
Okay.
And so it's like, no, that's not how it is.
No, I've lived, and so have you, and you're older too.
Right, exactly. Same way I age, you've aged.
So now, I know it's only been a week, or a little bit more than a week since we talked last, but have you noticed any, or have you been able to chart any kind of growth as far as communication is concerned, and how things are progressing at home?
I don't know that I've paid enough attention to it, and that's probably one of the reasons why I'm needing some of this help.
Okay.
Is I kind of need to like work through it versus how I'm used to just shoving it under the rug.
Okay. So instead of just glazing over it, we need to address it.
Right. Because whenever I would, have that conflict or something would happen, I just give up and say, okay, fine, whatever you say. And that's, you get the dominant hand. And it is sometimes because I do live in their household and I'm under their roof and I need to go by their rules, and that's fine. But it's the adulthood that comes with it, and that's a interesting situation, I guess, in itself.
Now, you're not an only child, correct?
Mm-mm.
So with your sibling or your siblings, did that ever?
I have two older siblings. Are you saying like how did it affect me or my siblings with my parents?
Well, I mean any of it. I'm just trying to shed light on maybe what is frustrating for you, so that whenever you are experiencing these moments of frustration, that you're then able to be a little more cognizant of what is happening, what is going on.
I think, so I have two older siblings. My sister's the oldest. She is in her 30s, and my brother is in the middle, and he's in his late 30s. He just turned 29 this month. So they're fairly older than me. My sister and I are 11 years apart. So, back up. My brother moved out first, and then my sister. So I lived at home with my sister for a while. but we were so far apart in age, you know, other than just being a sister, there weren't a whole lot of things necessarily in common. But it was even more so with my brother because he was out by the time I was 13, I think, and married and had a kid and all of that. So that relationship, you know, has just now sort of started to become something because I'm, you know, an adult. And
between you and your brother?
Yes. Okay. So my sister and I, we've had a relationship since my whole life because I wanted to be just like her. So I just copied everything she did and it was fine. It really wasn't fine to her, but it was fine to me. So, but as far as my siblings' relationship with my parents, I don't know if it was the way that I'm experiencing it because they didn't go off to college. They sort of just went off on their own life journey. So it was a little bit different. I don't know that they had the same issues that they had with my parents. Like, for example, you know, I'm 21 living at home versus my brother moving out at 19. So he didn't even experience living at home at 21.
He's never been at home at 21. Right. So,
yeah.
Which means that, well, I mean, with sisters, that'd be different because they're both girls, but they wouldn't have that ability to compare a 21-year-old boy to their 21-year-old daughter at home.
And so, you know, my parents did have a 21-year-old daughter at home, but I said I wanted to be just like my sister, but we are very different people, and we handle, I guess, intense or, I guess, just certain situations with our parents very differently.
Confrontation?
Yes, that's what I want. That's, yes. I think when it comes down to it that if we had to have the same conversation with our parents, I think my sister would be more open with them versus myself. But then if it was a completely different scenario, I think I would be
more open. It depends on the subject
Exactly.
matter. Yeah.
Yes, for sure.
Which then introduces the differences between you and your sister.
Right.
Your parents.
Which is why 21 living at home, which I'm almost 22. So living at home at that age is just, it's different.
Yeah.
So that's sort of the background with my siblings and my parents. But
they well, and I'm not comparing you to them at all. It just sometimes helps to.
But in my parents' eyes, it would be
for
a
them,
similar situation.
Yes,
maybe not for me. And
and that's what I'm trying to do is give you some kind of groundwork to look at and go, okay, well, maybe they're seeing it this way, and I'm just not at that perspective. But I mean, it sounds like you are your own person. So we'll just continue to dig in and see how we can help you, help your parents, and the three of you come to an agreement as far as what's going to be your life, what's going to be your story. So I wanted to ask you, like with this trip that you took the youth on, do you notice some differences in the diversity of the group and then how all that is working and how others receive that diversity versus how you come home and tell about the trip? I mean, I guess what I'm trying to say is, do you mute anything for your parents as far as talking about the cultural diversities that are demonstrated in those kinds of groups?
I definitely could. I don't know that I do it on purpose, but I definitely can. Thinking of the trip and it being so recent and thinking of what I just told my parents when I got back, I definitely did mute some things. Definitely.
Why do you think that is?
I didn't even mean to, now that I think about it. But I just, like, they asked, so how was the trip? It was good. Move on. And part of it is I don't have the time to explain. Part of it, okay, so if we're specifically talking about my mother, telling her about the story, or if she says, how was the trip? And if I want to go into detail, my detail isn't detailed enough for her. Okay. And then I get frustrated just talking about it. So it's easier to say, it was good. Okay, bye.
Yeah.
And I'm going to go to sleep. I'm going to go do homework. I'm going to do whatever. And actually, I haven't even spoken to my dad since I've been home. We haven't seen each other. So I haven't had the opportunity to tell him how it went. But I don't know that I keep things from them about diversity or anything on purpose, because I think, well, I mean, they knew who I was going with, they knew who I was taking, they knew, you know, for the most part, the people I was going to see when I got there. So it wasn't necessarily in a question of, so who were you with, what were you doing, they sort of already knew everything, because I am very involved.
Yeah.
It was
and at
hanging out on this day, like church on this day.
You were.
No,
you weren't.
No.
Okay.
I mean, in a non-cocky way, normally I am one of the leaders. Well, I guess inadvertently I was, because I got there and they didn't have anything taken care of, and a lot of them were like, Carly, what do we do? So I sort of had to okay, you need to do this first, you need to do this first. Is there anything you can do before this is done? Sort of do things out of order, so when everything does fall into place, it can assemble quickly. So I sort of had to do that, but going there, I wasn't supposed to be doing anything. So that was interesting. But no, this time I wasn't, necessarily a leader, so I just got to go, and it was really just out of the kindness of my heart. I took these kids because I love them, and they're good kids, and I said I would.
Yeah.
But while I was there, like I said, I got to hang out with some friends that I don't normally get to see because they do live in Dallas, so it was fun. But I don't really know where I was going with all of that.
Well, and that's totally fine, because it was a great story.
Okay, thanks.
What I wanted to ask you too was with the muting of different details for your parents, and kind of just not telling, not that you're necessarily lying
by omission or something.
You just understand that it is a source of contention, and so it's better if you just kind of, like we said earlier, glaze over it. Do you ever talk to them about some of those friends? Because in earlier sessions you've mentioned things like with sexual orientation with some of your friends, with some of the relationships that you've had that have been interracial. Have they ever gone into anything deeper than just they don't like it? Because I know you've also mentioned that they say openly that they are okay with it, but it's just different when it's, I think you even said one time, like, it's their own backyard, so it's different when it's their family.
And that's what is that's what's not sort of agreeing between their words and their actions, is their words are, it's fine, but then once I present, I guess, someone to them or an idea,
an opportunity for it to be fine,
then it's sort of, I can see the apprehension. As far as friends of different sexual orientation, as of right now, I don't necessarily have one that's directly close to me. I have had, like, whenever I was in high school, I had friends like that. Now, I do have someone that's very close to me that is not a different sexual orientation, but is sort of extremely open-minded to it. And, side note, in recent past, I've had issues with my social media and sort of my father monitoring my social media, and seeing on that social media these certain friends that express their open-mindedness, and that alarms him to start, to start worrying about me and if that's going to affect me. And his worry goes a lot further than just, hey, I'm concerned, to sort of like, I'm almost in trouble for the way that it is seen through his eyes.
Which then stems back to picking up where we left off when you left home.
Exactly. I in no way feel affected by other friends that are of sexual or of different sexual orientation or have different views about it than I do. I don't necessarily want to say we don't talk about it, because we do, but we sometimes try not to talk about it a whole lot because it isn't what we base our relationship off of, and that's sort of like that's just your opinion and my opinion, and we agree to disagree and we leave it alone, and we love each other regardless. And that's kind of like last time, whenever you're 13 and your parents tell you you're able to date, marry, live with whoever you want to as long as it's the right person for you and they're going to treat you well and all of those things. It stems from that of, well, you told me that, and in a 13-year-old's mind, you don't necessarily think sexual orientation, but when you're able to differentiate, you realize, okay, this is encompassed in that. No, I'm not living with this person. No, I'm not agreeing with everything they do, but I love them regardless, especially from the religious background that I come from.
Exactly.
And I'm supposed to love them regardless of what they do, but I'm not always supposed to love what they do.
In the world, not of the world.
Exactly.
Okay.
So.
Well, and I hate it, but our time is.
No, that's fine.
But what I want you to think about from now until the next time we meet is that elephant that you've got that's living in this house that everybody's just kind of walking around. And for you to work on some ways that you can empower yourself to address some of these issues respectfully and appropriately, you know, honoring God by honoring your parents, of course. But just thinking about some ways that you can kind of indulge them in some information and some ways that you can open that communication door. And I know it's tough with schedules and everything else, but
because in my house it has to be a 3-hour sit down conversation. You can't just, you know, say a comment and walk out the door.
It's got to be, yeah. So, well, then maybe you can even entertain the idea of setting a timer and saying, I've got this much time, let's go. Kind of like how we do. We've got a timer. It's okay. How much can we get done in this minute, this hour? So, but I do look forward to hearing from you how things go.
Absolutely.
So,
thank you.
Okay. Call me if you need me, and I'll see you next week.
Okay.
All right.
Thanks,
Carly.